You want to know what intelligence work really looks like? Forget the movies. Forget the gadgets. Most of the time it's sitting in a goddamn shipping office in a third world port, sweating through your shirt, drinking tea that tastes like diesel fuel, and reading manifests that don't mean shit to anyone except you. Port of Aden, Yemen, 1994. I was working under commercial cover as a maritime shipping consultant. That's what my business card said. Anyway, reality was I was there tracking weapons flows into East Africa, and the bastards moving them knew every trick in the book. False manifests, mislabeled containers, bribes at every level. The whole port ran on corruption, which meant if you knew how to work it, corruption could work for you too. I'd been in country for 3 weeks, building relationships with the right people. Not the harbor master, not the customs director. Those guys were too visible, too political. You want real information in a port, you talk to the cargo clerks, the guys who actually touch the paperwork, the ones who see everything and get paid shit for it. His name was Khalid, mid-30s, spoke decent English, had a wife and 3 kids he couldn't feed on his government salary. I met him at a coffee shop near the port entrance, the kind of place where dock workers grab breakfast before their shifts. Introduced myself as a shipping consultant looking for reliable local contacts. Paid for his coffee, didn't push, just let him know I was around. Third meeting, he mentioned something interesting. A container shipment coming through in 2 weeks, manifested as agricultural equipment from China. Standard stuff on paper. But Khalid had processed the original booking documentation and something didn't add up. The weight distribution was wrong. Agricultural equipment, tractors, plows, irrigation pumps has a specific weight to volume ratio. This shipment was too heavy for what it claimed to be. What do you think it really is? I asked him. He shrugged, sipped his coffee. Not my business to think about it. I just processed the papers. But if you had to guess, he looked at me. Tractors don't weigh like that. And tractors don't get shipped with that much security paperwork attached. That's when I knew we had something. The container was scheduled to arrive on a Chinese freighter, offload in Aden, and get trucked north toward the Saudi border. Final destination listed as Sana'a, but that didn't mean anything. Once it left the port, it could go anywhere. And based on the security documentation Khalid mentioned, someone very interested wanted to make sure it arrived intact. I needed to see that manifest, the real one, not the sanitized version filed with port authorities. I needed the shipping company's internal documentation, the stuff that showed who actually booked the container, who was paying for it, and where it was really going. Khalid, I said, how much would it cost for you to misplace some documents for a few hours? He didn't answer right away, just stirred his coffee. Misplaced documents? That's dangerous. Not if nobody knows they were ever missing. You work late sometimes, right? Processing night arrivals? Sometimes, next time you work late, you step out for dinner. Maybe you forget to lock your filing cabinet. Maybe when you come back, everything's exactly where you left it. But maybe during your dinner break, a shipping consultant needed to verify some information for a client. He thought about it. How much? $500 American. His eyes widened. That was 6 months' salary for him, maybe more. And if I'm right about what's in that container, I added there might be more work like this. Regular consulting fees for a reliable local contact. He took the money. 2 nights later, I had 3 hours alone in his office with the real shipping documentation, and what I found there confirmed every suspicion I had. The container wasn't agricultural equipment. It was a weapons shipment. 80 crates of Chinese Type 56 assault rifles, the Chinese copy of the AK-47, 40 crates of ammunition, 7.62 by 39 millimeter, standard Soviet caliber, 20 crates of rocket-propelled grenades, Chinese Type 69, direct copy of the RPG-7, and 10 crates of plastic explosives with electric detonators, enough firepower to outfit a small army or a large terrorist cell. The booking documents showed the real client not a Yemeni agricultural company, a shell corporation registered in Djibouti, but the payment trail led back to a Sudanese entity I recognized from previous intelligence reporting. They were procurement agents for the National Islamic Front, the goddamn political movement running Sudan at the time. And the NIF had connections to every jihadist group operating in East Africa and the Horn. This shipment wasn't going to Sana'a, it was going to Sudan, probably through the Red Sea coast, then inland to Khartoum, then distributed to whichever group needed weapons that week. Could be Somali militias, could be Eritrean insurgents, could be Al-Qaeda cells operating in the region. Didn't matter. What mattered was stopping it before it left Yemeni territory. I photographed every document, returned everything exactly as I'd found it, locked the filing cabinet. When Khalid came back from his extended dinner break, his office looked untouched. I handed him another $200 and told him to forget I'd ever been there. "What's in the container?" he asked. "Like you said, not your business to think about it." He pocketed the money and nodded, smart enough not to push. Now, I had a problem. I had solid intelligence on a major weapons shipment, but I couldn't just call in an airstrike or have U.S. forces intercept it. This was Yemen. We didn't have official military presence there, no legal authority to seize cargo. And if I brought in Yemeni government forces, half of them were probably on the NIF payroll anyway. The shipment would disappear before we got near it. I needed to stop this shipment without official involvement, which meant I needed to do it the old-fashioned way. I needed to steal the goddamn thing. The freighter was scheduled to dock in 11 days. That gave me less than 2 weeks to plan and execute an intercept operation in a foreign port with no official support and no legal authority. Most people would call that impossible. I called it a normal Tuesday. First thing I did was map the port's operations. Aiden's container terminal wasn't sophisticated. No automated systems, no computerized tracking. Everything ran on paper, manifests, and manual labor. Containers got offloaded by crane onto the dock, sorted by destination, then loaded onto trucks for inland transport. Security was a joke. A few board guards at the gate, some cameras that probably didn't work, and a perimeter fence that looked like it hadn't been maintained since the British left in the 60s. The weak point was obvious. If I could control what happened between the ship and the truck, I could redirect the container anywhere I wanted. But that required cooperation from the people who actually moved cargo. Crane operators, dock supervisors, truck drivers, and all of them needed motivation to help an American maritime consultant steal a Chinese weapons shipment. Motivation meant money. Lots of it. I contacted my handler through a dead drop at a hotel in the European Quarter, explained the situation, requested operational funds for a port security bribery operation, got approval for $10,000 delivered through a diplomatic pouch to the U.S. consulate. I picked it up personally, signed for it as shipping documentation, and walked out with enough cash to buy half the port staff. Next, I needed local muscle, someone who knew the port's criminal networks and could recruit the right people without drawing attention. I found him through Khalid's cousin, a guy named Rashid, who ran a cargo handling company that operated in the legal gray area between legitimate business and outright smuggling. He moved containers for clients who didn't ask questions, and he didn't ask questions about what was inside them. I met Rashid at a waterfront restaurant where the fish came straight off the boats and tasted like the sea, ordered grilled hammer, drank strong tea, and explained what I needed. "There's a container coming in next week," I told him. "Chinese freighter. I need it redirected after offload. Not to its scheduled destination, to a location I specify." "You're talking about theft." "I'm talking about a business transaction. The container never reaches its intended recipient. Instead, it goes somewhere else, and the people who make that happen get paid well for their trouble." "Who's the recipient? Does it matter?" He smiled. "Not really, but it matters what's inside. If it's drugs, that's one price. If it's weapons, that's another. Weapons draw more attention. It's weapons." Then it's expensive, very expensive, and dangerous. I counted out $5,000 in $100 bills and laid them on the table. Half now, half when the container reaches the location I specify. And if this goes well, there might be more work. He looked at the money, looked at me. You're not a shipping consultant. Sure I am. My card says so. He laughed, pocketed the money. What do you need? Over the next week, Rashid assembled a team. A crane operator who would offload our target container first before the regular cargo sequence, a dock supervisor who would falsify the offload documentation to show the container going to a different truck than scheduled, a truck driver who would transport it to a warehouse Rashid controlled in the industrial district 15 minutes from the port, and 2 of Rashid's own men to provide security during the transfer. The plan was simple. The Chinese freighter would dock around 4 in the morning. Normal offload operations began at 6, but our crane operator would start early. Just him, moving containers off the ship before the main crew arrived. He'd offload our target container first, set it on the dock in the pre-positioned location. The dock supervisor would mark it as loaded onto truck number 17, a vehicle that didn't exist in the port's records but would appear on the manifest. Our actual truck would pull up, load the container, and drive out through the south gate where a guard we'd paid would wave it through without inspection. By the time anyone realized the container was missing, it would be locked in Rashid's warehouse, and the shipping documentation would show it had been loaded onto a phantom truck that never existed. What happens after you have it? Rashid asked. Not your concern. You deliver it to the warehouse, you get the rest of your money, and you forget you ever saw it. And if someone comes looking for it, tell them it was stolen, probably pirates. Lots of cargo theft in this port. Everyone knows that. He nodded. This is true. The freighter arrived on schedule. 3 in the morning, under a quarter moon that barely lit the harbor. I watched it from a coffee shop across from the port entrance, close enough to see the operation, but far enough to maintain distance if things went sideways. Rashid was inside the port with his team. I'd given him a portable radio set to the same frequency I was monitoring. If anything went wrong, he'd call. If I didn't hear from him, everything was going according to plan. 4:30 in the morning. The crane started moving. I could see it from my position, the operator's cab silhouetted against the ship's deck lights. First container off the ship. Set down on the dock exactly where we'd specified. The truck rolled up. 10 minutes later, the container was loaded and moving toward the south gate. The radio crackled. Rashid's voice, calm and professional. Package is mobile. Copy that. The truck passed through the south gate without stopping. The guard didn't even look at it, just waved it through like we'd paid him to do. 40 minutes later, the container was in Rashid's warehouse. Locked down, secure. I met Rashid there at 6 in the morning. The warehouse was a corrugated metal building in an industrial area that smelled like diesel fuel and rotting fish. Inside, our container sat on a flatbed trailer, exactly as it had been loaded at the port. Rashid's 2 security guys stood watch, AK-47s slung over their shoulders. Not because they expected trouble, just because in Yemen, armed security was normal. I handed Rashid the remaining $5,000. Good work. What now? Now you forget this ever happened. If anyone asks, you never saw this container. Your warehouse was empty all night. And if someone offers you money for information about where it went, you don't know anything. He pocketed the money. I already forgot. Smart man. The container sat in that warehouse like a prize you'd won, but couldn't quite believe was real. 40 feet of corrugated steel, painted blue, marked with Chinese shipping company logos, and a manifest number that no longer meant anything. Inside were enough weapons to kill a lot of people. And I needed to confirm exactly what we'd intercepted before I called it into headquarters. Rashid had left 2 hours earlier. I'd paid his security guys an extra $200 each to disappear for the day, told them to come back tomorrow morning. What I was about to do didn't need witnesses. I had bolt cutters for the customs seal and a pry bar for the container doors. The seal broke with a metallic snap that echoed in the empty warehouse. The doors resisted at first. Salt air and humidity had corroded the hinges, but the pry bar gave me enough leverage. They swung open with a screech that probably woke up half the neighborhood. Inside, the container was packed tight, wooden crates stacked floor to ceiling, secured with cargo straps, each crate stenciled with Chinese characters and alphanumeric codes, no English markings. No obvious identification, just the kind of anonymous packaging that said, "We don't want you to know what this is." I climbed into the container with a flashlight and a small crowbar. The first crate I opened confirmed what the manifest had said: Type 56 assault rifles. Chinese manufactured copies of the AK-47. Each rifle wrapped in cosmoline-soaked cloth, packed in foam, 20 rifles per crate. I counted 4 crates in the first stack alone. That was 80 rifles right there. Ammunition crates were next. Sealed metal boxes, 50 pounds each, marked with Chinese military designations. 7.62 by 39 millimeter. Steel core rounds, boxer primed, corrosive as hell. The kind of ammunition that would chew through any barrel but would function in any environment. Desert, jungle, mountain, didn't matter. This was ammunition meant for war, not target practice. The RPG crates were lighter but just as deadly. Chinese Type 69 rocket launchers with PG-7 warheads, anti-armor capability, anti-personnel fragmentation. Each launcher packed with 3 rockets and a basic sight system. 20 crates meant 60 launchers and 180 rockets, enough to destroy a convoy or level a building, or turn a peaceful protest into a massacre. The explosives were what worried me most. C4 equivalent, Chinese manufactured plastic explosive. Stable, moldable, detonable with electric blasting caps. 10 crates. Each crate containing 20 kilograms of explosive compound. That was 200 kilograms total. Enough to demolish a city block, or bring down a bridge, or turn a vehicle into a crater. I photographed everything: serial numbers, manufacturer markings, crate counts, documentation. Then I resealed the crates and closed the container doors. Left everything exactly as I'd found it except for the broken customs seal, which didn't matter anymore because this container wasn't going anywhere near customs inspection. I walked 3 blocks to a secure phone location I'd scouted earlier, a hotel with international calling capability. Placed a call to a number in Virginia that would route through 3 different switches before reaching my actual contact. When the voice on the other end answered, I gave my authentication code and waited for confirmation. Verified. Go ahead. Package is secured. Contents confirmed. Type 56 rifles. 80 plus crates. Ammunition. 40 crates. 7.62 by 39. RPG systems. 20 crates. Plastic explosives. 10 crates. Total haul approximately 4 tons of Chinese military ordnance. Silence on the other end. Then destination. Originally routed to Sudanese Procurement Network. NIF linked. Probable final distribution to East African militant groups. Recommendations? Destroy in place. Can't risk moving it through official channels. Yemeni government is compromised. If we turn it over to local authorities, it'll be back on the market in a week. Negative on destruction. We need intelligence value, serial numbers, manufacturing dates, supply chain documentation. This shipment tells us what China is exporting and who's buying. We need it intact for analysis. I thought about that. Made sense from an intelligence perspective. Every weapon has a story. Serial numbers trace back to manufacturing facilities. Batch codes indicate production runs. Distribution patterns reveal supply networks. If we could analyze this shipment properly, we might map the entire Chinese weapons export pipeline into East Africa. But it also meant I couldn't just blow it up and walk away. Extraction, I asked. Affirmative. We'll coordinate a covert maritime pickup, get the container to a coastal location where we can load it onto a vessel without port infrastructure. Timing will be tight. Probably 72 hours. I'll need support for movement. This isn't something I can do alone. Use local assets. Pay what you need to pay. Just keep it quiet and keep it secure until we can get a ship in position. The line went dead. So now I had a different problem. I had 4 tons of Chinese weapons in a warehouse that I'd stolen through bribery and deception, and I needed to move it to a beach somewhere so the agency could pick it up with a boat without anyone noticing. In a country where every third person was either a government informant or a criminal entrepreneur looking for a score, this was going to get complicated. Getting the container from the warehouse to the coast required 3 things: a truck capable of hauling 40 feet of cargo, a route that avoided checkpoints and police patrols, and a beach location where we could offload without attracting attention from fishermen, smugglers, or the Yemeni Coast Guard. I went back to Rashid, explained that I needed the container moved again, didn't tell him why, didn't tell him where it was going after we got it to the coast, just told him I needed it transported to a specific location and I needed it done quietly. How much, he asked. $3,000. Half now, half on delivery. He thought about it. This container is causing a lot of movement. Someone's going to notice. Not if we do it right. 1 truck, night movement, no stops, in and out in 4 hours. And after you delivered, you go home and sleep well, knowing you just made $8,000 in 2 weeks for moving 1 container. That got his attention. $8,000 was serious money in Yemen, life-changing money for someone like Rashid. When? Tomorrow night, midnight departure. I'll give you the coastal coordinates when we're loaded and moving. The next 36 hours were spent planning the route and coordinating the maritime pickup. My contact in Virginia confirmed they had a vessel in position off the Yemeni coast. A commercial fishing trawler that was actually a CIA maritime asset. It would approach the coast after midnight, stand off about half a mile, and send a landing craft to shore. They'd have a portable crane system that could lift the container directly from the truck onto their boat. Total time on shore, 90 minutes. Maybe less if everything went smooth. I scouted the beach location personally. A stretch of undeveloped coastline 30 miles east of Aden. No villages nearby. No fishing camps. Just sand, rocks, and scrub vegetation. The only access road was a deteriorating track that probably dated back to British colonial times. Perfect for our purposes. Midnight came. Rashid's truck pulled up to the warehouse with a driver and 1 security guy. We loaded the container using Rashid's forklift. Took 20 minutes to position it properly on the flatbed and secure it with chains. Then we were rolling. I rode in a cab with Rashid. The security guy followed in a separate vehicle, watching our backs in case we picked up a tail. The driver was a quiet kid, maybe 25, who'd done smuggling runs before and knew how to avoid the checkpoints. The road out of Aden was empty. Middle of the night on a Tuesday. No traffic except the occasional truck hauling who knows what to who knows where. We passed through 2 small towns without slowing down. Nobody looked at us twice. Just another cargo truck moving freight in the middle of the night. Normal business in a country where normal business happened at all hours. The turnoff to the coastal track came up around 2 in the morning. The driver downshifted, eased the truck onto the deteriorating road. We bounced and lurched over ruts and rocks. The suspension protested with every impact. The container shifted slightly on its chains, metal groaning against metal. Easy, I told the driver. We lose that container off the truck and we're all getting out to push it back on. He slowed down, took it careful. 30 minutes of rough driving brought us to the beach location. The ocean stretched out in front of us, black and infinite. No moon, no lights, just the sound of waves hitting sand. I got out and scanned the horizon with night vision binoculars. Nothing. The trawler was supposed to be out there, half a mile offshore, but I couldn't see it yet. That was fine. We were early. Rashid climbed out of the truck. Now what? Now we wait. For what? For our ride. 20 minutes later, I spotted the landing craft. A small boat with an outboard motor, running without lights, approaching from the southeast. 2 men aboard. As they got closer, I could see the portable crane system mounted on the bow. Compact hydraulic setup. Exactly what we needed. The boat ran up onto the beach. The 2 crew members jumped out and secured it. One of them approached me. "You, Billy?" "That's me. We've got 45 minutes before the tide turns. Let's get this done." They moved fast. Professional? Military efficient? The crane deployed from the boat in under 5 minutes. They positioned it next to the truck, attached the lifting cables to the container's corner castings, and started the hydraulic pump. The container rose off the truck bed smoothly, swung out over the water, lowered onto the boat's deck with a metallic thud that I felt through the sand. The whole operation took 38 minutes. The crew chief gave me a thumbs up. "We're good. Get your people out of here." I turned to Rashid, handed him the rest of his money. "You never saw this. You were never here." He pocketed the cash. "Saw what?" "Smart man." Again. The landing craft backed off the beach, turned, and headed out to sea. Within 5 minutes, it had disappeared into the darkness. The trawler would rendezvous with it, lift the container aboard, and haul ass for international waters. From there, it would transfer the cargo to a U.S. Navy vessel somewhere in the Arabian Sea. Eventually, the weapons would end up at a CIA analysis facility where intelligence specialists would tear them apart looking for supply chain information. But that wasn't my concern anymore. My job was done. We drove back to Aden in silence. The truck felt lighter without the container. The driver made better time on the return trip. By 4 a.m, I was back in my hotel room. By 6, I was on a flight to Djibouti. That evening, I was filing my after-action report from a secure facility at Camp Lemonnier. The operation had been a success. We'd intercepted a major weapons shipment, denied it to terrorist organizations, gained valuable intelligence on Chinese arms export networks, and we'd done it all through bribery, deception, and old-fashioned balls. Nobody got killed, nobody got arrested, the weapons never reached their intended destination, and somewhere in Sudan, a procurement officer for the National Islamic Front was probably getting his ass chewed for losing 4 tons of Chinese ordnance. That's intelligence work. Not glamorous, not clean, not something you'll see in a movie. Just a bunch of broke-ass port workers getting paid to look the other way while a shipping consultant steals a container full of guns. And it works every goddamn time. Look, here's what that operation teaches you about how this business really works. Intelligence isn't about high-tech surveillance and satellite imagery. It's about finding the guy who has access to information and giving him a reason to share it. Khalid didn't betray his country. He just made his family's life better for a few hours' work that hurt nobody he knew. That's human intelligence. That's how you actually learn what's happening on the ground. Corruption isn't evil when you use it against evil. Every self-righteous bastard wants to talk about ethics and proper procedures. But when you're trying to stop weapons from reaching terrorists, you use the tools available. In Yemen, that tool was money. $500 bought me documentation, $3,000 bought me transportation, $10,000 total bought me an entire operation. And what did we get? We stopped enough weapons to arm 200 fighters. Maybe saved 100 lives. Maybe more. You tell me if that was unethical. And here's the thing. Nobody wants to admit the guys moving weapons, the procurement networks, the smugglers, they're businessmen. They respond to business incentives. You want to stop them? Don't preach about morality. Outbid them. Pay their people more than they're paying. Disrupt their supply chains. Make it more profitable to work with you than against you. That's intelligence work. Not spy novels. Not Hollywood. Real operations with real consequences. Here's what I learned from 30 years of doing this work in places most people can't find on a map. Operations succeed when you understand that every person has a price. Not because people are corrupt, because people need to feed their families. Khalid wasn't a bad guy. He was a clerk making $80 a month trying to raise 3 kids. I gave him an opportunity to make his life better. He took it. And because he took it, we stopped weapons from killing people. That's the work. Finding the pressure points, exploiting the vulnerabilities, using the system's own corruption against itself. You can't fight evil by playing fair. You fight evil by being smarter, more ruthless, and more willing to do what's necessary. We didn't destroy that weapons shipment because we followed the rules. We destroyed it because we broke every rule that stood between us and success. And that container full of Chinese rifles, it's sitting in a warehouse in Virginia right now. Intelligence analysts are pulling serial numbers, tracking manufacturing dates, mapping supply chains. Every rifle tells a story. Every crate reveals a network. And because we grabbed that shipment, we know more about Chinese weapons exports than we did before. That's intelligence value. That's why you take the risk. People ask me sometimes if I have regrets about the bribes, about the deception, about stealing a container full of weapons from a port in Yemen. Hell no, I don't have regrets. I stopped guns from killing people. I disrupted a terrorist supply network. I gained intelligence that probably saved lives downstream. That's the job. That's what we do. And I'd do it again tomorrow.